The grand halls of the Lombardy estate were heavy with tension, the kind that crackled in the air before a storm. The patriarch sat at the head of the long table, his expression unreadable as he examined the marriage proposal from the Rumen family. It lay before him like an unwanted relic, an offering he had no intention of acknowledging. He would act as if he had never received it. The Lombardy family could bear the weight of imperial pressure, but the Romans? They would crumble. Yet, the Rumen family had dared. They had sent this proposal, seemingly fearless of the consequences. The Lombardies had greater concerns at the moment. The dispute with the imperial palace loomed over them like a shadow, which had to be addressed first. A firm knock echoed through the chamber, followed by the entrance of the family's key figures. They bowed respectfully before the patriarch. He nodded. "Ah, you have all arrived." His voice carried authority, one that had commanded generations. One of the aides stepped back. "Then, I shall withdraw. Please continue your discussion." The patriarch wasted no time. "I trust you all know why we have gathered today." A resolute voice answered, "Just give the command, patriarch." His fingers drummed against the table as he spoke. "Today, I received a letter from the palace. They have given us 3 days to accept a marriage between our family and the imperial line. If we refuse, they will impose a confinement decree." A scoff rippled through the room. "So, it comes to this," someone murmured. "We have been too quiet lately," another added. "To think they would threaten the Lombardy family so brazenly." The patriarch's eyes gleamed with something dangerously close to amusement. "Then let us make them regret giving us these 3 days." His voice was calm, but his words carried the weight of a declaration of war. "When the confinement is declared, the Lombardy Guild will withdraw from the imperial capital. The Devon family will stand with us. We will inform every guild that has relied on Lombardy transport that we can no longer support routes passing through the capital." Understanding dawned on the faces before him. A plan was already forming. "Bilki," he continued, turning to one of his trusted aides, "how many projects are currently underway in the imperial capital?" 22, patriarch. "Cancel them all." Silence stretched across the room as the gravity of his words sank in. "If they persist, I will also involve the Lombardy Bank and our scholarship foundation. So prepare yourselves." A chorus of acknowledgments filled the chamber. With matters settled, the patriarch allowed himself a rare moment of levity. "Perhaps now we can enjoy a peaceful night's sleep for once." A chuckle rippled through the room. "Indeed, perhaps we should thank His Majesty for the opportunity." But this was merely the beginning. The true game was about to unfold. And then, as expected, the confinement decree was imposed. The imperial palace had made its move. Some whispered that this battle could stretch on for years, a long war of will and strategy. Others muttered that a marriage could smooth things over, at least on the surface. But how absurd it was to think that all of this turmoil, this uproar, was because of one granddaughter in another part of the grand estate. Voices clashed in a heated argument. Lorraine stood in the center, her family bearing down on her. "A decree of confinement, all because of you." Her mother's voice rang through the room. "Do you now understand the magnitude of what you have done?" her father demanded. "Do you understand how humiliating this punishment is for a noble? And do you know how much the Lombardy family is losing because of this?" Her brother scoffed. "If the first prince becomes the crown prince, you will be the crown princess, Lorraine. And in time, the empress of this empire. Why would you reject a match that every noblewoman would kill for?" Lorraine remained silent, her hands clenched at her sides. Her brother continued, "What good is a noble from the east with nothing more than a pretty face? Avinox Rumen is in trouble too, you know. He no longer shows up at social events. He doesn't leave his mansion. I imagine he's drowning in shame. The entire empire is in an uproar over his foolish love affair." Her mother softened her voice, adopting a more persuasive tone. "Lorraine, do you know how many nobles marry for love? The palace wouldn't be lonely. You would have family visiting. Lombardy's lands aren't far. And the empress, she's your cousin. She has promised to treat you like her own daughter. Through this marriage, we would truly be one family." Lorraine swallowed hard. "But, mother," her sister interjected, frustration spilling over. For pity's sake, how long will you persist in this stubbornness? Don't you see the situation? If you would only sacrifice yourself, we could all be happy. What? If you marry the first prince, father, mother, and I, we all get what we want. And yet you won't even sacrifice yourself for your family? Lorraine's chest tightened. Her head spun. Her father's voice cut through the chaos. That damned V Knox. There is a limit to being blind for love over family. Her resolve wavered. If only I sacrifice myself, everyone can be happy. But then, a voice within her whispered a bitter truth. Your family will not thank you for your suffering. Your family will not appreciate your sacrifice. You no longer have to endure this for them. Lorraine took a slow breath. I will do it. I will listen to mother and father. A chorus of relief filled the room. You've made the right decision. But Lorraine hesitated. Allow me a few days to come to terms with my feelings for Sir Avinox. Her father narrowed his eyes. Time? Yes. Just a few days of silence in my room. Please, father. A long pause. Then, a slow nod. Very well. If that is your wish, I will not disturb you. Her father left, satisfied. Lorraine's hands curled into fists. In another part of the mansion, Tia knocked on the door of the patriarch's study. Tia, come in. I'll have someone bring you some cookies. Grandfather, could I have a moment? I have something to tell you. The old man set aside his papers. It must be urgent. Speak. Tia took a deep breath. I plan to help Lorraine escape. The room fell silent. Lorraine agrees. You know she won't endure much longer. If we let this continue, the power struggle between our family and the imperial palace will drag on. There's no time to exchange formal marriage proposals with the Rumen family. So, she met her grandfather's gaze. You know nothing about this. Lorraine is acting on her own, running away with her love. But if, by chance, the knights do not guard the main gate tonight, and if the door happens to be open, it will be much easier for Lorraine to leave the mansion. The patriarch studied her for a long moment. This is a dangerous request, Tia. For a noble, eloping for love is considered dishonorable. But for you, grandfather, silence stretched between them. So be it, he murmured at last. Tia smiled. I see. Then I'll leave you to it, grandfather. As she walked away, she exhaled. Everything was ready.